Welcome to the 8th episode of Laughing All the Way. Today I have a special guest. Her name is Pat, and Pat has been a friend of mine for a few years. She's a bit older than I am, and at one time in her life she was described as the healthiest child in Vermont, but we'll get onto that in just a minute. But not her health, but Pat is here because she was a nurse for over 50 years. And she has some interesting stories to tell about the way the climate has changed in the nursing industry. So we're going to meet Pat. It's Pat.
Hi.
You already know me, so you didn't have to do that.
I forgot. I'm old.
You're not that old.
I was 14 when I had an opportunity to go into nursing. Where am I looking? I don't know what I'm doing here.
You're supposed to be talking to me.
Oh.
You've never done this before.
No, I haven't.
I haven't done it but 8 times, so I'm not very good either. And the audience, my mother, she doesn't care.
Oh, she doesn't?
No, because she's the only one probably watching.
That's encouraging.
It is encouraging.
But anyway, at the age of 14, I had the opportunity to work at a local hospital.
So it was when you were 14?
14.
You wanted to work at a hospital, or you needed money?
No, I didn't get paid.
Oh, well, of course not.
Not in the beginning. But yeah, we were allowed to work at that age.
Okay.
And so I became, they called us candy stripers.
I remember. Did you have those little bibs with the red and white stripes?
No. We had a yellow wraparound. Plain yellow wraparound, and they called us candy stripers.
And they didn't even give you money.
And they didn't give us candy either.
Oh, yeah, I know.
It just didn't seem right.
It isn't right.
But they would let us do little things, you know. And one day they were very busy, and this man came in, and so they asked me to just take him to his room. He was an elderly farmer, probably, you know, about my age or so.
Okay.
And
your age now, not 14.
No, not 14. That'd be good.
Now let me ask you though, when he asked you to take him to his room, was he like in a wheelchair or?
Oh,
I don't understand this.
Okay.
Okay.
He had come in for some testing.
Okay.
And so no, he was walking and had his overalls on, and you know, typical farmer that Vermont would have. So I took him into the room and I folded back the sheets and gave him the Johnny. We still have nowadays.
They're the same kind.
Same kind, open, you know where.
And the same colors.
Blue.
Because
blue
who would want to steal those?
It's amazing. Nobody. I couldn't get over that.
Okay.
I didn't even
so
have
ugly.
one at home. But anyway, I showed him how to put it on. I realized he might not know how to do that, and then told him he could get into the bed. Now, so as I say, I had turned the covers down, and I went out, and I told him I'd be back shortly, which I was. I gave him about 10 minutes, and I went back in, and lo and behold, you know what a draw sheet is on the bed? They put it under the patient, you know, and it's just covers the middle part of the bed.
Okay.
And so when I went back in, he was lying under the draw sheet. He hadn't untucked it, hadn't laid on top of it. He was under it, his leg out on one end, and the rest of him on the shoulders and whatever on the other end. And when I walked in, he said, "This is kind of tight." I thought I did well for the age of 14. I said, "Oh, well, you'll probably be a little more comfortable if I loosen it." So I loosened it and pulled the rest of the covers up over him, and didn't even smile. I went outside the room before I started laughing, and told one of the nurses about it, and she went in and straightened things out. And I thought about that a lot, and I thought, nursing can be fun. So I actually had an older sister. She's 8 years older, really ancient, especially now, gosh. Anyway, she was a nurse, and I thought, I want to do that. So I told her that I thought I wanted to be a nurse too. She said, "Nah, you wouldn't be any good." I said, "What do you mean I wouldn't be?" You know, she was not nice to me. So I knew. I knew I was going to do it.
You were going to prove her wrong.
So I did it. I went to, at the time, Mary Fletcher Hospital in Burlington. And we had a 3-year school, which nowadays they don't have anymore, which is why we don't, if you want to know, why we don't have nurses. It's a big shortage because everyone can't afford college.
Yeah.
And back then, granted, it would cost a little more now probably, it cost $380
A year or
for the 3 years
Oh, my
with
goodness.
uniforms. You know, lived in a nurse's dorm. I called it a nursing home once. We don't call it that anymore.
How old were you then when you started college?
Didn't go to college.
Well, to your
The
nursing
nursing,
school.
it was nursing school, yeah.
Yeah.
I was 18,
You were 18.
right out of high school. And at that time, that was when polio was really rampant. And they had us working almost instantly just to keep the respirators going, because, you know, when the power would go out or something. And that was pretty interesting. But nursing, it was just great stuff. You could always find something to laugh about. I laughed a lot more after I got out, after I had graduated, different hospitals I worked in and things, and there's crazy things I can't imagine. You know, these tales I'm telling you aren't necessarily about me; they're just about everybody else. Yeah. One of
Well,
the,
you could pretend they were about you. Who's going to know?
they know me.
Okay. Let me get the year. The year that you got out of nursing school was
1952.
1952. Wow. So I wasn't born yet.
Oh, stop bragging.
So when you got out, when you said you went to different colleges or different hospitals and worked, you've been in hospitals today, recently, as a patient. How has that changed? Because I can remember, you know, in the era of reading about Clara Barton, just before you and all, but and Florence Nightingale and all those, you know, those are the history stories that you read. But they had, added all kinds of measures to hospitals to make it so that people didn't get infections and stuff, because they didn't know about all the stuff that was out there.
Right.
Except today, there are actual bacteria that you can catch in the hospital that are at the hospital, which is
scary.
It's very scary because I don't know how that happened. So what was the climate like at the hospitals when you were working at the very early 50s?
In 60s and 70s,
Yeah.
so on. Well, number one, it does bother me nowadays that don't wear white anymore, and I don't get that sense of sterility or cleanliness that we had back then. But yes, we had a lot of rooms that they put them in, isolation rooms.
Yes.
You know, to keep them safe, and
other
people that were
safe.
going in
Right.
might go in. They'd have to wear masks and gowns and whatever. I haven't been a hospital nurse since '03, so I'm not up on a lot of the stuff. But it just felt cleaner looking back at it. I liked it, the way we had it. There's a little more work with uniforms and things like that, but it was really good stuff. And patients were in the hospitals a lot longer, so you really got to know your patient. You know, in fact, one time, early '70s, this patient rang her bell, and I was at the desk, and we had an intercom system, and I said, "What do you want, Jane?" And she said, "Pat, I've got diarrhea." And I said, "Oh my goodness, have you any idea what size cork you need?" And and I heard all this laughter. She had a room full of family and other visitors. Oh shoot. So I quickly went into the kitchen hoping against hope that I could find a cork. Well, of course I couldn't. And I was totally disappointed. So I went down to the room with some medication, and I told her, I said, I really looked for a cork, but I couldn't find it in your size, you know. So, but I got to know the patient better. I liked that a lot.
Yeah.
Now that, you know, in recent years, even in the '80s, they were getting out earlier, you know, and something's missing there. For me, I had a couple opportunities, not a lot, to supervise, and it was something I never wanted to do. I liked bedside nursing, and you could have a good time with the patients. And it's challenging at times, but fun. I get a little carried away on occasion. I know it's hard for you to believe, but one time when we had a fire drill, you know, we go around and close all the doors to the rooms. And so when fire drill was over, you go back and open up the doors. And one door that I opened up, this elderly lady was in, again, much older than I am. And she said, "Nurse, can you tell me something?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. What would you like to know?" And she said, "Why do you close the doors when there's a fire or a fire drill?" I don't know where this came from. And I said, "You don't know?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Well, that's so you can't see the help running out the back door." And she said, "Oh, nurse!" And I thought, oh, I didn't judge her well. I'm going to get a pink slip on this one. I didn't. I was very fortunate. And then fast forward about 15 years, and I'm working, actually at Alice Pax Hospital in Lebanon, and I was admitting this lady. I was working in same-day surgery, you know, getting people ready for surgery, and they're all always very nervous about it. Yeah. And so I went out in the waiting room to get this lady to come in, and she was in her 70s, I would say, and her daughter was with her, who was around 50. And she said, "Can I please come in with Mom? Mom is so nervous." And I said, "Sure." So she came in, and Mom really was nervous. So while I was getting her ready for surgery, I just kept talking, how unusual for me, I know, but I did. And I told her the story about the fire drill. And I know, and so she was really interested in the daughter, was getting into it too, and they started laughing and whatever. And right at that moment, we were having a fire drill. The siren went off, and I just looked at him and I said, "Well, I have to leave now." And the daughter said, "No, you're not going anywhere," she said. And so it couldn't have worked any better.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And Mom was happier.
I remember one thing you told me that when you were working with patients and they seemed nervous, the nurses would keep chattering about different things, like over the top of the patient, to kind of calm them. And I thought they were just being rude. I've always thought they were rude.
Oh, really?
Yes, I just think that's odd. Well, because, hey, I'd like to talk too, you know. Yeah. Obviously, or I wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Amen.
Right. Now, you worked at Alice Pax Day. You worked at what is now Dartmouth, when it was...
No.
You never worked at Dartmouth?
I'm probably the only nurse in the Upper Valley that hasn't worked there.
You worked at Gifford? Fletcher Allen?
No.
Did you work? No?
No,
Okay.
I worked at the VA for a couple of years.
Okay.
In this area, you know, in this
area. Where else did you work?
When up here, doctor's offices.
Okay.
I worked in Medical Associates, which was in Bethel at the time. That name has changed. I can't even think what it is now. But Dr. Armstrong, Dr. Gadway were there, and Dr. Knight. And yeah, one time when I was working there, Dr. Knight, expecting a patient to come in. Excuse me. Yeah, fleas.
No, it's either fleas or you're going to lie.
No.
And your nose is growing. I think that's what it is.
Thanks a lot. I'll take the fleas.
Okay. But then I'll
I have
them.
to.
Okay.
He was waiting for a patient to come in, and he got a call that one of his patients, the obstetrical patient, was in labor at Gifford, so he'd have to go up there. So he said, "Call the lady that is coming in shortly and ask her to meet me up there. Then I can see her in between seeing the OB patient." So I called, and she was and told her, and she said fine, she'd go up there. And I'd no sooner gotten off the phone, it seemed, then they called back and said, "No, it's false labor. she's okay. You don't have to come in right now. So he said, well, call Bev and tell her that she doesn't
She
can
come
stop
in
here
now.
at the office because
Right.
she'd be going right by. I said, okay. So I called, and the son answered. And he said, Mom has already left. And I said, oh, my.
And this was before the days of cell phones.
Oh,
Where you just-
absolutely.
okay.
Oh, yeah, nothing like that. That would be too convenient.
Yes.
And so she'd already left, and I said, well, what kind of a car is she driving? So he told me. And so I told Dr. Knight that she was on her way up to the hospital, and he said, well, get out there, and if you know what car she's driving, just
Flag
get
her
out
down.
there and flag her down.
On the side of the highway.
So out on Route 14, I went out, white uniform, cap, the whole bit, and I went out on the side of the road, and I saw her coming, and I went like this and told her to go into the... Several people drove by laughing. I don't know what was so funny.
Only in Vermont.
Yeah.
I mean, would it be that small because there's only 2 roads?
Yeah.
That you could go on one of them and find
Absolutely.
the person that you're looking for.
Yeah, it was just weird,
Yeah.
But someone asked me, well, actually 3 or 4 someone's, were you desperate for customers that day, or what were you out there for?
Flagging down people. Now,
But
you
that was-
worked at hospitals in Massachusetts, too.
I did.
Okay, what did you
Right
work?
after graduation, I was married, and he had a job in Springfield, Mass. So I went down there. That was pretty interesting. I worked in a couple of hospitals there, and also for an oral surgeon.
Okay, what were the hospitals you worked at?
Springfield Hospital, strangely enough. The other one was called Wesson Memorial Hospital. It was different for me because they were obviously much larger, even larger than Mary Fletcher, which was the biggest one, Gifford and APD are smaller. But I learned a lot in those hospitals because they were teaching hospitals, a lot of medical students. Speaking of medical students, I'll go back a little bit here.
Okay.
When I was a senior at Mary Fletcher, and in our senior year, we staffed a lot. And one of my nights, I was on the men's ward, which is 20 beds, and they didn't get much privacy back in those days. Those 20 beds were all in one room, divided only by curtains.
So there was just
No
like
privacy.
a long, almost like an alley.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Wow, that would be hard.
Yeah, it would be as a patient particularly. They had no privacy at all. But so this doctor came in at 6:30 in the morning, and I'm to leave at 7. And he said, boy, I'm glad I caught you before you left because I want all these patients to have 3H enemas. And I said, what? I said, I'm supposed to leave in half an hour. He said, I think you can do it. He said, but I said, all of them? And he said, yes. And, and I said, by the way, all my years here, my 3 years, I'm almost ready to graduate, and I've never heard of a 3H enema. He said, no? He said, I said, what is it? He said, high, hot, and a hell of a lot. I said, thanks a lot. I didn't have to do it. I really didn't.
Was he making a joke?
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Absolutely, he was making a joke, thank God. But he had me going there. I should have known because I knew him.
Yeah.
But anyway.
That was one of the many stories.
That was one. Oh yeah. There's just so many funny, good stories out there, and my mind isn't with me today.
No,
I left it at home.
That was
somewhere.
in the car.
Yeah.
Now,
Thank you.
one of the things that you told me about, though, too, is you were living in Massachusetts in the city during the 60s, 70s?
Yes.
Okay. You have an interesting story about a patient that you ended up actually going to their church.
Oh,
and that's a
yeah.
good story. You should tell
I
that story.
did. I was 29, and found myself to being a single parent, and had just moved into a small apartment in pretty much in the middle of Springfield, Massachusetts. And I didn't have any transportation, so we would take a bus or whatever when we were going somewhere. And one day, at work. I was taking care of this lady. She happened to be black, and I got to know a lot of people like that. We didn't have any, none of them wanted to live in Vermont at that point in time. But anyway.
Yeah, Vermont was pretty much just one race, pretty much.
Exactly. Yeah, it really was.
Old Vermont farmers. Yeah, certain type of people.
Yeah. And so I was taking care of her, and this man she told me, she said, I'm going home today. And I said, wow, good for you. And this man walked in, also a black, tall, handsome man with the deepest voice I think I'd ever heard. And I spoke to him, and before, as I tell people that I spoke before I speak before I think, and then sometimes don't bother to think about it afterwards, which is good. But anyway, I said to him, wow, I said, I don't know what you do for a living, but it should be something in public speaking. And the two of them got to chuckling over that, and it was so funny. And she said, well, he's my pastor. I'm his organist in his church. And I said, really? Oh my goodness. I said, and where's your church? And he told me, and it was just 2 blocks from where we were living.
And you were living there with your 2 kids?
Yes, absolutely. They were 6 and 2. And I said, and that sounds great, because we can walk there. And he said, yeah, sure, you'll come to my church. Yeah. I didn't know what he meant, because I didn't know what prejudice was. And he certainly didn't, obviously I understood later, he expect any white person to come to his church. Well, I did. We did. And they put up with us for 5 years. And they were just wonderful to us. They really were. They called us their token whites.
Because you were the only white people in the entire church.
We were.
Yeah.
But I went there, and on the first Sunday I was there, some of them came up, and they were great, and I wanted to know if I thought I'd be coming again, and I said, yes, I really enjoyed the service. And a lot of great gospel singing. It was good stuff. And I definitely want to come back. Well, we'll put you on a committee. Okay, what does it mean? I have 2 kids, but they work that out. They have babysitters and so on. And so the following Sunday, the committee they'd put me on was that committee's turn to have the coffee hour. So they told me, yes, you can do the coffee. I thought, well, that'll be good. I'll get to meet people. So I'm standing behind the table, and then one gentleman came over, and I said, would you like some coffee? He said, yes, ma'am, I would. That was a surprise to me. I'd never been called ma'am before, little things. But anyway, so I poured him his coffee, and I said, would you like some cream in it? He said, oh, yes, integrated, honey, integrated. I never forgot that.
That's great.
And they were just marvelous. My daughter was in the junior choir, and one Sunday, waiting for her to take her robe off and come back, I was talking with some of the other women, and when she came over to me, one of the women patted her on the head and she said, boy, your mom here, she should be so proud of you. And she said, how did you know she's my mom? Which was great. Yeah. I loved it.
Because she didn't see color.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. That's great.
And I had that actually in the Sunday school. I taught 4th grade. We had 2 4th grade, big Sunday school. It was great. And we were talking about the miracles of Christ. And I said, well, these are nice stories, but you're only 8 or 9 years old, and what can you do? Yeah. And so then they got going. They did well. If somebody's sick, we can visit them, or if we can't visit them, someone else said, we can send them a card, and we can just be good people to people. I said, yes, you can. And one of them, a little girl, spoke up, and Stephanie, I remember her so well, and she said, yes, and if someone has fallen down, we can help them get up, even if they're white. Oh. She didn't see me, but the kids beside her were going like this. I just said, you're right, Stephanie, that's very good. I couldn't wait to tell her dad.
Well, it is.
But it was great.
Well, that attitude is how you portrayed it to your kids, and that's how they related. Because I can remember we lived in Houston, Texas before we moved to Vermont. We were there 7 years, and we were in a very integrated neighborhood. You know, there was a lot of different nationalities, and my son's, he was about 6, his best friend was DeMarcus, and DeMarcus was a little black boy, African American, and they played together all the time, every day. They played and played and played, and one day, for some reason, they had short sleeves on or something, and Peter came running in, and he said, "Mom," he said, "look at this." He put out his arm, and DeMarcus puts out his arm, and they go, "Look at this." I said, "What?" And he said, "These are not the same color. His is dark. His is darker than mine." I said, "It is." And he said, "I know." And then they walked back outside. And that was the last I ever heard of it. And I just,
Oh, that's neat.
I thought it was wonderful. That's the
Absolutely.
that's the last thing he ever said. And he hasn't been saying anything since for all these years. So it must have worked.
It's okay.
Yeah. So can you think of can you think of one moment, you mentioned that you didn't get a pink slip when you told that poor old woman that you were running out the back door.
I know. That was bad.
Was that, a pink slip was like a derogatory
you're
remark.
done.
You're done. Did you ever get threatened with one of those?
No, I never
Oh,
did.
good.
No.
Because we wouldn't want that to go on
Thank you.
History Channel or something.
Thank you for clarifying that. I appreciate it.
Because knowing you, it
beg your
wouldn't
pardon?
surprise me.
Thanks. I always thought well of you, but
Not now.
once I did anyway.
Yeah. I just think it's amazing that you were a nurse for that long. I mean, I think, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, it was good. I liked it.
Yes.
It was good stuff.
Yeah.
There's so many stories that I wasn't directly involved in this one, but I love it anyway. This oral surgeon that I worked for 3 years in Springfield, Mass. He was Jewish, and a lot of his patients were, and it seemed to be known. So he told me that they spoil their children. And he got a call one day from one of the dentists, said he was sending over a little boy who needed to have a tooth, taken out. And so, but he said, "Watch out for him, Irv, because he's a
He's a spoiled child?
he's a very spoiled. He's a biter."
Oh, gosh.
So he said, "Okay." So he came with his mom, and he put him in the chair and put the drape on him and so on. And he said, "Now let me look in your mouth. I want to see what tooth we're going to take out." "No." And he said, "I don't have any instruments in my hand." He said, "I'm just going to pull your lip back and look at it." "No." He said, "If you don't let me look, your mom's going to have to leave." And she said, "No." He looked at it. He said, "You open your mouth and let me look." So he scared him enough when he said that. He kind of ignored the mom. And he pulled it back and he looked at it. And said, then later on, something else he wanted to look at. And he wouldn't let him. So he said, "Escort Mom out to the waiting room." And so Mom was taken out to the waiting room. And then he said, "Now, open your mouth." And he did, and he put his finger in it, and he bit him. The doctor leaned right over and bit the kid on the shoulder.
Oh, my God. Oh, today he'd be in court.
No, he wouldn't. I'll tell you why. He had a drape on anyway. And so he said, "Now are you going to behave?" So,
How old was this kid?
8.
Wow.
Yeah. So then he, proceeded to give him the anesthesia, and put him to sleep, took the tooth out, and when he came to, he said, "I want my mother." And he said, "Are you going to behave?" And he looked at me, So went out and got Mom, brought her in. The doctor was doing something over here, so he's standing behind Mom.
Yeah.
And the boy looked up and said, as soon as Mom came in the room, he said, "He bit me." And his mother went over and slapped him across the face, and she said, "You're always lying." The doctor standing behind her with a big grin on his face. So no, he never would have been, and there were no marks because it
was on the tray. That's great.
Anyway.
That's great. Well, this is Pat Maynard, and we were here today to talk about some of her experiences, and if she liked it, we're going to get her back.
Oh, no. That's what they're saying.
That's what they're saying. And then I always give somebody a gift. talk show hosts do that. They spend money and they buy gifts, but this is really low budget. So I went to the dollar store and found you this little doctor's kit, just to remind you of being on
that's
here. And
wonderful, the
you could-
stethoscope
You could
and-
put it with all your other memorabilia of amazing things in
I
your life.
can't wait to use them. This is absolutely delightful.
Okay, thanks for watching Laughing All the Way. We'll see you next time. Bye.